Hey there, Jason Lavoie, aka the Divorce Resource Guy, and today we're going to talk about your psychological contract. Have you ever even heard that term before? I'll admit, when I interviewed Lisa Kaplan on my podcast, I had never understood or even heard of psychological contracts and how that was intertwined with marriage. I'm going to introduce it to you now in this little episode, but if you want to listen to the full episode, you can link and listen to it in my podcast. Your psychological contract is like the unwritten rules of the marriage, right? So when we get married, you take your vows, you have a ceremony, most of us, and you go through usually the typical vows, I love you, I'll be with you, rich or poor, till death do us part, right? But that's a legal contract. But there's a lot of unwritten rules that are under that contract that nobody ever really talks about. And this is the psychological contract that I'm talking about. So it's a set of unwritten rules. So, what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about children. Are you having children? Are you not having children? How are you going to raise your children? What religion are you going to raise your children? What about school, public school, private school, college? You haven't even had kids yet. What are you going to do about college? These are just some of the examples of discussions that everybody should really have before they get married, okay? Because it's part of the contract that you're going to make. Conflict. When your children misbehave, and they're going to misbehave, well, how are you going to deal with that? How are you going to discipline the kids? What are you going to have for breakfast? No, I'm just kidding. What are you going to have for dinner? That's a serious one. Your psychological contract, what have you discussed before getting married? Even after you're married, have you discussed these things? Because I'll tell you this, figuring out how to raise children once you have children, a little too late. You want to do all this beforehand, make sure you're on the same page so you minimize the amount of conflict later on. There's going to be conflict, and you will deal with that conflict, hopefully in a good way, but certain things are really big matzo balls that you got to deal with, like raising children. So, what have you discussed? When have you discussed them? It's always better late than never, folks. So, figure out what your psychological contract is and communicate that with your partner. The last thing that you want to think about is, are you guys heading in the same direction? Meaning, when you get married, the idea, theoretically, is that you guys are going to grow throughout the years, but grow together and follow a similar path together, right? You both want the same things, emotionally, financially, and you both want to grow together. If that is not the case and you kind of stray, that's where conflict happens and that's where divorce happens, because you both are not growing together, and then you both end up wanting different things in life and you get divorced because you want different things in life. So you want to try to preempt that and figure it out as much as possible ahead of time. Doesn't always happen. Life changes people in ways that sometimes we can't foresee, but you want to prepare as best you can and understand not only the legal contract that you're getting into, but also your psychological contract, so your marriage can be as successful as possible. See you next time, everybody.